In this video, we're going to take a look at the advanced features of DeltaNet Creative Studio. So we already have a basic video out there that is going to cover just the basic usage, picking a template, adding information to it, and then sending it out or saving it or printing it out. But this one is going to get into some of the more advanced functionality so that you can see how to connect fields, how to do some more advanced editing as far as the images and text color and text formatting and things like that go. So without further ado, we're going to go to Marketing and then down here to Creative Studio. And that takes us into the Creative Studio interface. Now, all of these items, now we're going to kind of assume that you've seen the basic video, so all of these items up here and the filters and things are all covered there. And in this case, we're just going to go ahead and create our own design. Now, before I click on that, just to let you know, everything that we go over under the Create Your Own Design, functionality-wise, can be applied to any of the templates you select here, as long as those templates aren't completely locked as far as what you can do with colors and things like that. So the idea is that we'll be able to use a lot of different design elements to create this and edit a lot of things. You can use those same things on templates that you've selected if you wanted to select one and then kind of modify it to make it your own. So let's click on Create Your Own, and here we are. Now, first thing, if you take a look over here, you can see we are already on advanced mode. So this, if I click this, it would take me over to easy mode. If I just finished my template design out and I wanted to just send it, I could switch over to that just to remove some of these items basically and make that a little easier. But for now, we're going to go ahead and choose our type. So what do we want to create? I'm going to go ahead and pick flyer, and then we'll just do a standard 8.5 by 11 flyer. Now keep in mind that all of those different options there really just pertain to the canvas size. So I'm going to pick 8.5 by 11, but even if I had picked like a Facebook post there, the only thing that would do is set these options to a canvas size that makes sense for whatever I selected. Now to cover the bleed over and all that sort of thing for actual print marketing pieces, if we switch this over to inches, we'll see that our 8.5 by 11 template is actually 8.75 by 11.25. And then we have this little margin border here. If I wanted to remove that, I could just click on this and get rid of that little border. Now I could also change my canvas size here if I wanted to go with an odd size that wasn't 8.5 by 11. So I have the ability to do that if I want to create some really specific kind of design. So we'll go ahead and switch that back to pixels. The next thing I can do here is I can add and remove pages. So if I click plus, that would add another page if I wanted to make a multi-page design. If the design does have multiple pages, they'll all appear in this drop-down. So right now I just have a page 1, but if I had page 2, 3, 4 added this way, I'd be able to select those here. And then also if I have more than one page, I can use the minus button to delete those pages. So right now I can't delete it because I only have the one. I can't delete my only page, but if I had more than one, this would be highlighted so that I could delete it. Now moving right along, the other option just to cover everything down here is the grid line snapping tool. You'll see in detail when we start adding elements to this design what that actually does, but basically it helps snap elements in the design as you drag them around to help you get things aligned and get things centered properly. If you're doing some really fine-tune moving of a particular item and you want it just so, you may need to uncheck this because it'll keep trying to snap it to the nearest snappable location, for lack of a better term. So if I wanted to remove that, I would just uncheck this box and then I could drag things freely. So we'll go ahead and keep that checked for now. Now up here we have all the same options that we had before as part of our easy mode or basic video, the basic functionality. But you'll find that once I start adding elements here, this context menu is actually, not only is it going to change based on the element I have selected, but I'll have a lot more options than I did when I was in easy mode. Alright, so we'll just run through each of these things in turn. So we'll see, just like basic mode, we have listings up here at the top. So that is our first tab. It loads up with all of my listings by default, but if I wanted to find additional listings, I could type an address or an MLS ID here and search for them, and that'll bring them up in this list. Now once they're up in this list, I can click on the address here, and that expands each one of these entries. So it gives me access to the finer elements within each one of these designs. You can see I have the same picture 4 times in that one, so that's a good one. It's only sample data, so what are you going to do? So here we are. We'll go with this one. So I've selected my listing. We'll go ahead and scroll the page up a little bit more. There we go. Now if I want to start adding information to my template, I can just grab it from here and I can click on it, and then that'll populate the template with it. So let's say that I want a big picture right up front and center. So we'll go ahead and click on our listing image. So there it is. And now I can place this around however I'd like. Now you can see the grid snapping is helping me center it. So as I scroll through here, it pops up and helps me make sure the image is centered. It would do the same thing vertically, and then if I have other elements on the page, it'll actually help me snap this into place in relation to those other elements also. Now, since we have an image up, you can see that all of our context items have changed up here. So we still have the ones we had before, cut, copy, paste, or undo and redo. So we still have those options. Also, all of our moving forward and back options are still here. But in addition to those, we have all of these context-based options that are specific to images. So if we roll over this first one here, now believe me, we have the group option here. I didn't skip over that. Well, I did skip over that one, but we'll get back to that one later. For now, if I roll over this, we can see it pops up and tells me what it is. So this one is coloring. So if I click on that, you can see it opens up an image color sliders, so I can make changes there. If I want some more red in this image, I can just dial it up. So there we go. I like it in blue. This is a particularly neat feature because with this stuff, and actually a lot of these image editing options, they actually give you the ability to make changes within the editor. So you don't have to, if you wanted to highlight certain things or tune up certain colors, or maybe just increase the contrast a bit, you don't have to do it in some outside software and then save a new image and upload it. You can actually make those changes right here. So that is one thing that's particularly cool about this. There we go. I think I like that. So our next option here is effects. So if I click on that, you can see I can add a blur or pixelation to this image, which is kind of neat, especially for background elements. I could put something in the background and blur it a bit so there's not as much focus on it, and then put other elements ahead of it. So I have the ability to do that. I have the ability to crop my image. Now when I crop, I have a few presets, so I can go with a square, a circle, or 16 by 9. It just changes the shape of my box. But I can also go with freehand. So in this case, we'll do a freehand one, and we'll just make this a little more rational of a shape. There we go. I clicked off the box there. So let's try that again. There we are. And we'll save that. So there we are. Now it hung on to the changes that I've already made to the color, but now I have a nicely cropped image. So we'll go ahead and put that in our design. There we are. We'll take it all the way out to the ragged edge, and then expand a little bit. So there we go. So there's my listing image. Now the next thing I can do is I can rotate it horizontally or vertically. Rotate's the wrong word. I can flip it horizontally or vertically. I have an option here to control the shadow properties. This would actually allow me to add a drop shadow to this image. So we'll go over drop shadow in a little bit more detail when we get into text, because it makes a little bit more sense there. But I do have the ability to put a drop shadow on here. So we'll go ahead and go with a nice black shadow, and we need to move it out to the right a little, move it down a little, maybe not quite that much. For a demonstration video, I don't want to get too picky with with my design elements here. And we'll blur it some more, and then we'll drop the opacity a little bit. There we go. Now that's a nice drop shadow. So now we have an image with a nice shadow. I think I like this better than the full-size one, so we'll go with this. There we are. Now the next image options I have, if I keep going here, I have an opacity option, so just the overall opacity of the image. So if I had something behind it, I can drop that down a bit. I have all the images, or all the options we're used to move it forward and back within the design for the layering options. I can turn it into a link, so that if I do send this out as an e-card, it would actually turn this image into a clickable link that would go wherever I put here. And then lastly, I have my border options. So if I click on that, you can see I can click on these and I can make the width bigger there. It doesn't quite know, it has a little trouble doing it in relation to the with the drop shadow and everything on there. I'm doing a lot to this image at once. But you do have the ability to add a border to these as well. So we'll back out of that. Oh, we're still flipping things. There we are. I liked my shadow. I'll go back in here and see if we can get my shadow back. No, my shadow's gone for good. Here we are. We'll go back into listings, pull my image back out there. There we go. And now we'll crop it again. This time we'll go with a nice pre-built 16:9 crop. There we are. Save that. And now we're centered. I like those colors, so we'll go ahead and stick with those. So that blue up my contrast a little bit. Now that's a good picture. I like it. And now we'll go ahead and put that nice shadow back in there. There we go. Now you can see it dropped to some of the image on my crop, and this can happen sometimes when you're going through an image and you're adding a lot of effects to it all at once. So there we go. We'll center this up a little bit better. So there you have it. All right, now the next thing we can do is we'll go back to listings, and we can add in additional listing information and have it populate the template automatically. So the nice thing about this, now really I could just type in text here and I could connect that to data fields however I'd like. But if I grab them from the listing information here and bring them into the design that way, then those fields are already connected. Now the nice thing about that is that once this template is saved, if I load it back up and add a different image or add a different listing to it, or connect a different listing to it rather, then it will already know that listing image 1 should go here. So if I right click on this and hit connect, we can see it's already set to look at listing image 1. So that just means I add a new image to it. This is where image 1 is going to go. It'll do the same thing for the rest of the listing fields. So if I say I want address and city down below that, we'll just drag that over. There we are. We'll get that aligned. Now if I click on that, you can see it opens my text properties up. I have the same font customization properties that I had available in basic mode. And we'll go ahead and pick a font and we'll apply it to everything so that our font stays consistent here. We'll center it because I think that makes a little bit more sense. There we are. And now let's make it a little bit bigger. One thing definitely to keep in mind as you do these is you want to extend these text fields to what you would expect kind of the maximum width to be. Now what's going to happen is when you add data from another listing in here, if the address is longer, if it extends beyond the size of this box, it's going to start wrapping down to the next line. So you want to make this box as wide as you can where it'll make sense within the image so that you can handle values that are larger like that. But even then, when you add those in, you have the ability to go in and shrink the text down, and make it fit better if you want to. So there we go. Let's make it bold because why not? And we have all the same options to adjust color, size, things like that. Now if I had multiple lines, line height also comes into play here. Now for advanced mode, I have additional options up here. Now we click on our shadow properties and I can add a drop shadow just like I could with the image. I can also drop the opacity of that element. Again, same as images. And I can do borders just like I can with images. But the interesting piece when I put a border on text is that it actually adds that border around the text itself. So it's not a border around the entire section, but it's just a border on the individual text. Here, let's pick something that shows up nice. There we go. Halloween colors. And we can make that larger and smaller, so we have a lot of options there. That might be not quite as subtle as I hoped for. So let's go in and change our text color to like a gray there. That's not bad. And now we'll change our border color to a black. There we go. Yeah, it's a little better. Like I said, I'm no designer. So there you go. So there's our listing address, and I can do that with all the rest of the listing information. So if I go in here, scroll back down to my listing information, I want bathrooms with a label, I want bedrooms. You can see if I click on it, it just puts it out here. I'd rather have that with a label though, so we'll delete that one. And we can do beds, baths, and square foot all at once, even better. There we go. So we'll just put that right underneath. We'll get rid of that. And I'm just pressing the delete key to remove those items. So now we'll take this piece that's selected, shrink it down, and there we go. Now you can see, because I drug these in from the images, if I right click, they're already connected to the correct data fields. So if I do save this template and I bring a different listing into it later on, it's going to fill in with all the correct information automatically. So that is a big benefit to doing that way. Now, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just add some text, and I'll say, this is my listing description. And we'll insert that. So here's where it put it. Now if we go down here, we'll make this a little bit smaller so it makes a little more sense as a listing description. And we'll left align it. And now we'll make the width of our box make sense. Again, it'll extend down on its own as there's more content added here. So if I just take this text, copy it, and then paste it like that, you can see how it keeps making the box longer, but it won't extend past the boundaries width-wise. So that's just something to keep in mind as you build these out. Now I've just put in some text here, but let's say that I do want this to fill in with a listing description automatically when I add listing data to it. To do that, I'm just going to right-click on it and go to Connect. And now I can click on this field, and these are all the data fields that I could connect this to. So this is the listing, company, office, or agent data that'll fill in on this automatically when I pull this template up and I add that data to it. So we're going to go ahead and make that listing description and save it. Now if I add another listing to this, this will fill in with image 1, this will fill in with the address, this will give me beds, baths, and square feet, and this will fill in with the listing description. It's kind of neat. All right, so that is how I can go about going in here, adding listing data, and have that stuff populate automatically. Now the next thing I have here is agents. So under agents, it's going to load me up automatically, just like it would load you up automatically if you were the one logged in and using it. So just like with listings, I can go ahead and extend that field, and I'm going to add a picture down here. In fact, we're going to drag this down. I'm going to put my picture down here at the bottom. And then I want to put my display name next to it. There we are. Now that is centered, which is going to be a little weird for that, so we'll left align it. And let's make it a nice hearty black and bold. I deserve to be in bold. There we are. So there's that. Just like the other fields, you want to make sure the width is appropriate. Now, if you're building this for yourself, you have a pretty rough idea of how wide your name is going to be most of the time, so you don't have to be as careful with that. Whereas if you're designing this for use by others, you have to be more careful with these widths because there are longer and shorter names that may or fit better or worse in these fields. And then we'll go ahead and drag in a couple more fields. So I've got that in there. Let's put my phone number in here. We'll keep that gray but make it a little bit smaller. Left align that also. There we are, and you can see the grid snapping. It's helping me get that stuff aligned. And we'll go down here. We'll add, let's see, email address. We'll make that 22 also. So we'll go down here and make that 22. There we are. And maybe we'll put the website here as well. I think that's going to make sense. So back to agents and then down here to website. There we are. And we'll also make that one left aligned and then 22. Now you can see that I can either drag this slider, I can use these up and down arrows, or I can actually type in a value here. So I have some options there as far as how I set that up. And we'll get that one left aligned. I missed that before. And there we go. So now I have my agent information down here at the bottom. So far, our design's coming together here. It's actually coming together. It looks better than I thought it would so far. All right, so that is how you can add in your agent information. Just like the listing information, as I add those pieces in, because I'm pulling them from agent information here, they're automatically connected. Now, if I had gone to text and typed in something and pulled it in from here, then it wouldn't be connected. It would just give me a block of text that's unconnected to any data, which is fine, depending on what you want to do with it. But then I could still connect it by right-clicking on it, selecting Connect, and then choosing the data I want to connect it to. Now the next thing I have here under text is I have the ability to select from some kind of pre-built text options for me. So I have my custom text here, but as we go down here I have the options for company-based text, so I can bring in the company name, phone number, all that stuff, and have it display automatically. And I can do the same thing for office. So here's an office that we have set up, so I'll extend that one, and we'll say we want the office name and full address here, so we'll just put it down here in the middle. And we'll make that a bit smaller. We'll keep it centered. 16 sounds good. Let's do it in blue. Why not? So 16 and blue. We'll keep that in mind for the next one we add. So text. So there is name. There we are. Hills and Dale's name. And now we're going to do phone. And we'll do the same thing. The slider's a little bit quicker sometimes. There we go. And blue. So that piece is connected in, and then we'll do one more text, and we'll put the address in there also. And that grabs the full address, and again, because I drug those from the office options, those are already connected. So if there were another agent that used this design from another office, it would fill in with their office information automatically. Which is nice, but again, less relevant if you're building this for yourself. We'll make that match. So there we go, we're making progress. Now, the next thing we can do here is if we go under text, we do have an option for blog. So if you have a blog set up, you have all of your blog article information here. On this design, I'm not sure it would make sense, but all of these work the same way as the agent listing information. I can expand it, and then these are the contents I can pull in. And then if I just want to connect those contents from any other article, I can do so. Now if I go down here to testimonials, you can see I have some testimonials in the system, and that works exactly the same way. So I can go here and I can put in in fact, we'll go ahead and add that in. So we'll put in testimonial. We're going to put in a name. We're going to make this stand out a little bit, so we'll make his name bold at a 22. There we go, so we'll just put that right there. And then we'll go back over here to testimonials again. There we are. So there's our Mr. Buyer, so we're going to pull in his actual review also. This was a great transaction. What a guy. Thanks, Mr. Buyer. So we'll bring this down to 22 also. There we have it. And there we go. So now we have a little transaction here. Not really a little transaction. A little review. We'll move this over a little bit. There we go. That looks pretty good. We'll make Mr. Buyer a little darker too. I'm on a roll now. I'm having fun. So there we go. Now that I have both of these pieces in here, we can take a look at the grouping functionality. So if I click on this, right now these are two completely separate elements that are connected to transaction data. So if I add a transaction to this, it's going to fill in these fields because they're going to match up. Like I could just go to, or testimonial data rather. So I can just go into testimonials here, and if I pick another one and click on it, it's going to fill in with whatever I click. And you can see the other ones don't fit quite as well because the testimonial itself is much larger. But those just fill in that way. Now if I wanted to add multiple transactions, I would have to separate those somehow. So what I can do is I can select that field, and then I'm just going to hold down my Control key or Command key on a Mac and select the other one and click Group. So now I have these grouped together, and that gives me a couple of benefits. First off, I can move them as one piece now, which is kind of nice. I can also copy them as one piece, so we'll go ahead and copy and paste. There we go. So now we've got two. So now we have two two testimonials down here at the bottom. And because they are two separate grouped fields, I can add testimonials to them separately. So we'll go back over here to testimonials, and we'll say we want to leave this one as the Mr. Buyer testimonial, but make this other one the Rick Grimes testimonial. So I'll just drag that over, and you can see it only updates the one. And then this only updates the other. And they're still grouped together. So that is a nice way you can do that. Now this is a little bit of a rough example for these, just given how much bigger these testimonial sizes are. But if I click off of that field, I can now ungroup them with that button up here. So we'll take this guy and make it a bit smaller. So we'll make it, let's go down to 16 instead. Move that down here, and then we'll grab that. And there we go. So that one's going to look a little bit better. And now we can group those back up again. And there we go. And now you can see all of my resizing, all of my moving, everything manipulates both of those fields all together. So there you have it. I'll go ahead and fix this one real quick before it drives me too crazy. So we'll ungroup that one, do the same thing, take this down to a 16. There we are. That actually looks okay. That looks pretty good. We're not doing bad. We're doing better than I thought we did. Like I said, I'm just not a designer, you know. So there we are. Now we have a couple testimonials there. So that is all the things that you can do here with text, blog, and testimonials pieces. And again, these fields are connected now, so if I drag in other testimonials, you'll see that it makes a bit more sense as to how it works now. So if I want to pull Mr. Buyer back in there, we'll just drag it in, and there we go. If I want to grab my Michonne testimonial, we'll just drag that one in, and you can see it updates with that information instead. So we're coming up with a pretty clean design here. All right, so the next thing we have is under stock images. We can click on this, and you can see we have a few different options here. So if I go with elements, these are elements that I can pull into the design, some kind of just basically ones that are pre-built for me. So under elements, we have logos. So I'll go ahead and pull in my logo. I'm kind of liking this black and white theme, so we'll go with this one. So there's the company logo there. I can pull in the real estate logos, generally something that should be included on this sort of thing. So we'll put that guy in there, our equal housing logo, and shrink it down a smidge. There we go. I'm having fun now. Oh, that one's already tiny. Not quite tiny enough, though. A little bit more. There we go. That's looking pretty good. And then as we go down here, these are where your real design elements are going to come in, you know, where the real creativity comes in with this, because you have a bank of shapes and icons and even houses, which really just specific kinds of icons, speech bubbles, social media. So you have a lot of options here for different things that you can drag into this design. And that's really all any of these are. They're just shapes that you can put into the design, and then you have options to manipulate. So we'll go ahead and grab one. Let's just do a basic shape at first. So I'll just click on a square, and you can see I have a nice sharp-edged square here. So let's shrink that down a little bit, and we'll make this block kind of delineate our testimonials here. So we'll shrink that down, bring it out to full width. That black's a little bit much. Now that I have a shape selected, my context options have updated accordingly. So over here is our fill option. So we'll go ahead and make this another color. Kind of like this this dark theme we're going with. Let's go with a custom color. So we'll open that up. We'll make it kind of a dark gray. And now we will take this element and we will push it all the way to the back. There we go. Dark gray might not have been a great choice since it's still covering up my my names there. Oh, there we go. Use my back button to fix my mess. There we are. Well, we may have to go with a different color. Hot pink. How's that? That might be a little much. All right, let's go with blue. I'm picking an interesting combination of colors here, so you know, it's going to be tough sometimes to find the things that come together just right. There we go. A dark and a light together. I made an odd choice, but you get the idea. So that way I can put that bar in to delineate that field. So now we just have a black bar in there. Now I can also, I'm running out of design room here, but go back under elements, and I can pick some interesting shapes here too, which is kind of cool. So if I go with houses, there's some complexity to this shape, which is going to be kind of nice for our example. Now it put it very tiny up there in the corner. So we'll make that guy a little bit bigger. And now if I go over here to borders, it works a lot like the text. So you can see when I click a shape or click a color for the border, we'll shrink that down a little bit, it actually outlines the shape itself. So just know that that's an option with each of those shapes you drag in. But in each of these cases, you're doing the same thing. You're just going through these. We're going to go back over here. You're just going through each of these elements and making selections or dragging in the designs you want, and then using the fill options and the contextual options up here to do things like changing the opacity, changing the color, changing the outlines and borders to really make the design your own. So the next thing we have under here is stock images. So if I click on that, this allows me to pull up some images that I don't have to upload myself. Now I can upload upload images myself, but it's nice that I don't have to. So if I go in here, let's say we want to put some clouds in our design. I'm just going to type in clouds. Now these are all just royalty-free images, so you can use all these however you see fit. So we'll pull up a nice clouds design. I think this one's pretty neat. So we click on that one. There's my cloud image. So we'll go ahead and fill this out. There we are. Now we'll push it all the way to the back, just like that. And let's do a couple other things to this image. Where's the button I'm looking for? Ah, that was it. There we are. So we'll lower the opacity, or maybe we'll add a little bit of blur to it. So we'll go over here to our effects, add some blur there, maybe drop the opacity some, so it kind of helps it fade into the background. Now it faded into the background maybe a little bit more than I was going for, but but that's actually not too bad. Yeah, I don't really like how it sits behind that text, but for the most part it's not too bad. Let's darken this text up. That'll fix it. Perfect. Look at this. Almost looks like I know what I'm doing. Oh yeah. All right. So there you have it. So now we have our stock image added in there, and you can do whatever you want with these images. So they can be a background image like what I did here, or you can actually make them kind of highlighted images. I mean, they're particularly nice for non-property specific e-cards or flyers. So if you're building something that's just like a holiday greeting or a season's greeting kind of thing, then you can find images that are related and make that kind of the focal point instead of making the listing the focal point. So again, the limit is your creativity here. Now the next thing we can do here is, let's see, we went with stock images, we've been through elements, so if we take a look at backgrounds, we'll find that this works in much the same way, only it's designed to find a background image that will cover the entire background and not an image that you just pull in and kind of place where you want. So just to take a look at that, I'll go ahead and look at the advanced options here. You do have the ability to select from some advanced options. So we want a portrait, and then it's getting close to Halloween, let's do a pumpkin. Pumpkins. And there's our orange portrait pumpkin images. So I can pull these in and use these as a background then. Now the next thing I can do is I have an uploads panel here. And this is where I'll go about adding in anything that is just completely custom on my machine. So if I go to uploads, you can see we have some folders in here. Now our suggestion is that you go in here and actually create a folder every time you're creating a new design. So if you're creating a design from scratch, go in here, click that our three-line menu button, and we're going to create a new folder, and we're going to call it Custom Design 1. I would suggest you go with more descriptive names than that, because if you end up with a bunch of them, Custom Design 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is going to get hard to keep straight. But now that we've created our folder, we can click on that. You can see it drops it in here at the bottom of our sidebar. And right now it's empty. So I'm going to go up here and say upload. That opens up my upload interface, and now I can click add files, and I can select images from my computer and actually upload them into this folder. And then when I go into this folder, I can drag these images into my design and manipulate them in all the same way that I can the listing images or the stock images that I pulled in from over here. So there you go. That about does it. That is how you can create a completely custom design and what all the advanced features look like in here in DeltaNet Creative Studio. So that is how you would go about building one from scratch. Now again, know that all of these features that we went over, the field connections, the grouping, all of those kinds of things are also available if you were to go in and edit an existing design instead of creating a new design. So we've basically gone over the same thing either way. Now a nice thing with an existing design is you'll notice that when you have advanced mode on, if you click on an image that's within that design, you have all these additional context options to do things like flipping and rotating and the color changes, all that stuff. So that is another piece that you have at your disposal there. Now the other thing I'll add is we did go over field grouping in relation to these testimonials, but that works the same way for listing information too. So I didn't do it with the listing information in this design because I only have one listing on here. So if I want to change it to another listing, I'll just go to listings, click the button, and now it fills in with the other listing. So whichever one I click, it's just going to fill in with it. Now another nice thing is you'll see that it kept my image effect changes regardless of what listing image it pulls in. So that is something that can be particularly cool for like a themed template. It hangs on to all that. So now if I did have a design that had more than one listing on it, so I wanted to be able to feature more than one, so basically I would just create this section, and just to give you an idea, I could take this, highlight all these fields, group them together. Now we'll shrink the whole thing down, and now we will copy it, paste it, and then drag the other one over here. Now we did something strange to my image there, so I'll ungroup it, fix my listing image. I have a lot going on with that image. There we go. And now we'll regroup it. There we are. So now with that regrouped, I now have two different grouped listing sections. So that means that when I go into listings, if I just click on one of these, normally it would populate the ungrouped listing information, right? But now I can drag this onto this section, and I can have this listing featured here and this listing featured here. So that is something that is, that's how you would add multiple listings to these. So with these, I could even stack them here. Though if this was a print template, I've shrunk them down enough that they might be a little small to read at this point. But that gives you the idea. All right, so the last thing I'll point out is that I have this background image here that I'm using as a background image, and you could see that when I clicked on, or when I tried to click on this, I actually got this selected at one point. It is possible to avoid that kind of thing. In fact, we'll stretch this down a little. If I right click on it and click lock, well, now that image is locked. So now if I click on it, it doesn't move that image. So I can't shape that image, I can't resize it, I can't accidentally grab it and do something I don't want to with it. Instead, I would have to actually go here, right click, and unlock it to be able to access it again. So that is some particularly handy functionality as you design these and you start adding in background elements. In fact, I would always suggest doing the same thing to background bars like this. And there you have it. See, and I just grabbed my testimonial and moved it again. There we go. So there we go. That's not too bad. We've come up with a kind of okay design that I then ruined by adding a second image to it, but we didn't do too bad overall, and that should give you an idea of what you can do with some of the advanced functionality here in the DeltaNet Creative Studio. Thanks a lot.